why I'm sending back the Renpho Smart Measure, which is this device here, that is in theory able to measure with just pulling it out, and then you can measure circumference like this, and then you put it in, and then you have it like this, and then you click a button, and it automatically would sync the measurement to your phone. So on the phone you have an app, which is the Renpho Health app. Now, previously I used another app for tracking my circumference measurements after I, for years, discontinued basically these measurements because they just take time. Now also they take time because maybe I don't have the right tools, so a couple of months ago I already got this, which already was quite an improvement compared to just a normal measuring tape, because you now can measure your wrist, for example, or your underarm or your biceps. Let's just do the wrist because it's easy, and then it also has this circular design, and then you can read it from here. Now this should have been the improvement, at least ideally, I thought so. Now there are a couple of problems with this. The first problem is that it is way narrower in terms of the band that is pulling out. The question I have to ask myself, I at least think, is whether I can use this not only for 2 weeks, for 4 months, but maybe for 5 years or maybe for 10 years, because in terms of having data in apps like these, it seems to be very useful to have data over a long period of time. So if a system doesn't work for multiple months or multiple years ideally, then the data is missing. In terms of my body composition data, for example, I had a switch in what apps and scales I used, and this seems to be not that useful because then I just cannot cross-compare myself over time. Now, the device comes with this package, which is, well, what it looks like, even though now it is at focus. It also has apps on the App Store as well as the Google Play Store, at least it says so. I have used the Android app. Now it also is able to have these 12 body measurements. Now if we take a look into the app, then we can see in the Renpho app that there are multiple devices. The first one is the body fat scale. I got them from a brand called Camtron, but now I connected it to this app, and also we see the tape measure. Now if we click on the tape measure, then we can see what it looks like in the app. So now the idea was, and this is what I thought would be now the idea, is that you would turn this on and you basically start measuring. And also it's very smart, it already realizes that you have this out. But now a problem began to occur, and this is also why I'm sending back this device. When I had the tape pulled in, it already showed a value, which meant that, well, I couldn't get rid of this. I tried turning it on and off. We have 3 buttons on this device. The first one is the check mark button, the second one is the on and off, and the third one is the one where you switch the lengths of, not lengths, but units of measurement. So the turn on button is actually not really to be used, but now we have already the mistake. The tape is fully in, and well, it shows already something. So now, in theory, and this is already what worked quite a couple of times, you would now have the app, and then you pull it out, and by clicking, I think you activate already. Yes, you activate already the first thing. So now, let's just say my neck would be 2.2 centimeters, then I again would click on the check mark button, and then it would save it. And then by clicking it again, it goes to the next one, and then you could measure the next thing, in this case my shoulders, and then I would check it again. And this, at least when it worked, would have been... No, now it didn't work, so that's already kind of part of the problem. Sometimes it does work, so it's not as reliable as I would have wished it would be. What I also would have wished this would be is just a smart version of this here. Now this is just a little bit more robust. If I have to take this out, then, I mean, maybe it's just me being that tall, or maybe my fingers are still kind of too high in body fat, but it is just hard to get this out here. Also, it feels like it could tear off at some point in the future. Maybe not the next months, but maybe in 2 years it might break. Now also, because it already has reliability issues as of now, will this be a system that works for the next couple of years? Probably not. I initially thought that this was quite a nice idea so I bought this scale, and the scale had initially another app which was called FeelFit, and this other app has also a circumference tab, which I have been using and still kind of am using, at least when I'm measuring with this device. Now, of course, one could track in Excel. Of course, one could maybe find another app like Gym Tracker Strong, for example, which I also sometimes used whenever both of these apps weren't working, or rather the first one, because the main problem with this old app was that it sometimes didn't work and it seems to kind of sometimes have issues. So whenever I then am there and I'm often under time pressure because I have to get somewhere else, but I still want to do the measurements, then I cannot do them and I cannot record them. And so this turned out to be a problem in terms of the reliability of the old app. But now, since I have the smart device, even though it might promise, it would have promised that it would actually be a better workflow, and sometimes it did work, but I wished this would have been kind of in a form factor more closer to this, and also in terms of the sturdiness and stability, so I can just pull this out and then put it in again, compared to this here, where I'm like... Now, of course, I exaggerated a little bit, but if it now, again, it shows this here, so it is not very useful. You can also switch the avatar in the app, and you also have custom measurements, 6 of them. It also gives you a waist to hip ratio readout. But I also found that the app was just not as good as the old one. So as I still had the old one available, and I at least sometimes am able to use it properly, I figured I will continue to use the old one. At least sometimes it just doesn't work. I want to measure and then I restart the app and I restart it again and it loads. But this is now the old app, what I'm talking about. So now within the other app, the FeelFit app, I now can also track body measurements. And it looks like this here. I do have my phone in grayscale, so I do not have the colors. Now, we also have custom measurements as well as 3 different body proportions compared to 2. And when you actually now record measurements, the page looks like this, which I think is a little bit friendlier. The other page, I actually will turn on the colors in order for you to see. So the Renpho app just has this waterman. I don't know, does he even have normal hands or does he have fish hands? I don't know specifically, but I, to some extent, I think at least can identify with this thing more. It looks a little bit friendlier, I don't know. Now, also in here, if I now type it in, this is also the same in the Renpho app. You can just slide left and right to adjust this basically and then go to the next measurement. But of course this doesn't have a smart measurement tape that, at least in theory, would optimize this workflow, but in practice it seems to kind of be a de-optimization. So in case I haven't mentioned it already, I don't know, I thought in the beginning, I will send this device back. It cost 25 euros, I think it was an offer, so usually it sells for 28 euros or something like this, or maybe it was 28 euros and usually it sells for 30. There is also a small battery in the back, which can be taken out with a screwdriver. So the screws are these ones. So it's the normal ones, the cross screws, or I don't know specifically, at least as of now, what they are called. Now, once you have it open, you can see that there is this normal cell battery, and this battery I did think about maybe not sending it back. Of course, sending it back is also time consuming, but also this gives me back 25 euros. So these 25 euros, of course, have the opportunity cost of interest. So by having this, what is the advantage of me having this? It is a loss in kind of space in my apartment because, well, at this point in time, I probably will never use it again. This was kind of the second day at which these mistakes appeared, these errors, and so what will be the future in which I will have a device like this, I don't know. But maybe also another company comes out with a device like this, maybe Garmin for example, and then also takes these measurements into account in their Garmin Fitness Age, which would be very nice. But at least as of now, there was no such thing available, so I got this, but it seems to not work